Welcome to Bridge-Builders, where we connect church lingo and culture with our faith, hoping that this will help us to grow in our understanding to live out our purpose. My name is Sung-Soo John, and you can call me RJ. I'm so grateful that you are here taking your time as we talk about the Ten Commandments. Please subscribe and like and help us further this reach if this is helping you. But more importantly, please comment so we can engage, and I would like to really hear what is helpful and how we can continue on this journey with you. Now, if you've seen the Chuck Knows Church episode 78, Chuck gives a fun and a very approachable explanation about the Ten Commandments. And today I want to talk about the Ten Commandments and what this is and why this is important. And I'm going to share some of my ideas. The first thing that we need to remember is Ten Commandments was a way for God to help the Israelites form their identity. Remember the story of how God had saved them out of slavery for hundreds of years from Egypt. And out of that rescue, they are now in the Mount Horeb, and which is from Exodus chapter 20. And Moses is up on the mountain receiving the Ten Commandments. Now, during that time, the people got so anxious because not seeing Moses. They said, we need a God. We don't have Moses. He abandoned us. So what they did is they pulled out all the jewelries that they had, and they had formed what we call the golden calf. And Aaron says, this is the God who had saved you from your oppression. And Moses, who is actually receiving the directions of how these people have to form their identity. And they were definitely misguided at that time. He comes down and out of fury, he throws the commandment tables and crashes the golden calf. And of course, Chuck talks about how it was grinded and they were drinking it, which I do have to say, maybe his mother got that idea of drinking salt water after he had said something nasty. But the Ten Commandments, more than a rule, as I said, it is really a revelation of being something counterculture at that time. When that culture was all about serving all these different gods, which that was a struggle throughout their time. And the culture or their identity was that we are a nation of slaves. Their identity had been revolutionized onto you are now God's people, and you are to serve God in a way who loves you so much. So the first 4 commandments are about our relationship with God, and the other 6 are in a relationship with one another. When I say it's revolutionary, it says because, and it's also counterculture, it's because at that time, there were so many gods, and God saying, I am the only God that you should have before me. You shouldn't make any idols. And what God is saying is that you should take a rest. And Sabbath is a time that we all, as people of God, take rest. Not because we need it. Sometimes we do need it. But more because we recognize that through that rest and through that rhythm that God had created this world, God is helping us to realize who we are and whom we belong to. Of course, the other parts of the Ten Commandments is about how we need to honor our mother and father, how we shouldn't murder or commit adultery, not steal, not having self-witnesses or not covet. But the way that it is countercultural is because we live in a culture that we want to get everything that we see. Everything that you want, and kind of intensified by the algorithm, that once you search on something, you'll see that you continue to get bombarded by the things that you may have searched on. And what that makes is that it creates a heart of desire that I want to get more and gonna get more. And if I don't get it, what happens? There's this deep despair. And God is saying that your identity is not on what you want and what you need or get. And that is the power of the Ten Commandments, which actually became more of a moral guideline for us. And Andy Sani will call it the guardrails. And of course, based on that Ten Commandments, there's thousands and thousands of law that was written in the Jewish tradition. Not that we all have to do it, but it was the attempt and the heart that the people wanted to live according in that identity. I do have to say, by saying that, we shouldn't be legalistic. We shouldn't be the ones who judge others who may not follow this rule. Because God never judged us based on whether or not and how good or not we had followed this rule. And sometimes Christians get it wrong when we start to make this legalism. Because obeying all these laws doesn't make us good Christians. Obeying all these laws doesn't allow us to come into God's everlasting kingdom. We know it from our faith that it is by the grace that we are received as God's children. It is by the grace that we are to have that promise of that everlasting kingdom. But because we are accepting Christ and accepting our identity, that's where the 10 Commandments help us to be growing in our word and Methodist world, being sanctified and pursuit of this holiness. So I am a person who believes that we shouldn't be forcing this to others. I'm actually a person who believes that we should continue to keep this and continue to follow these commandments as a way for us to continue to grow in holiness, but knowing that this is not what brings us to God's kingdom, but it is only by God's grace that we are received. But once we live in this kind of countercultural way, once we are really living this out, I am a true believer that people will see something that is different. Something that there is a promise in the way that they are living. Something there is a promise in knowing who they are and whom they belong to. Something that there is a difference when people live according to those commandments, even though it may be different. That countercultural aspect will be a way for people to see God and God's glory through us. That reminds me of Francis of Assisi when he said, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. It should be more about how we live out our faith, not how we press it on to someone else. And I hope that we will continue to live on that faith and hope and pray through God's grace that we will truly be formed in the identity of being God's children in this world until we enter into that kingdom. So, live with that identity of being God's children in this world and do all you can to live in that holiness.